I'm Weston. I love talking about the Rangers, and I'm here to recap Game 39 of the regular season. Rangers lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins 5-2. This is a rough one, man. This is a rough game, and I'm not going to waste any time getting into it, right? Igor Shesterkin's in net again, 5th consecutive game. 15-10 left in the first period. Miller and Truber, the defensive pairing, they make a little oopsie-daisy right in front of the net. Penguins get a grade A scoring chance, or at least that's what it felt like. Right in front, Shesterkin makes a couple of really, really nice saves, a point-blank one, and then a few more on his side and on his back to keep it a 0-0 game. And then almost immediately after that, 13:34, Zohorna catches Lebor Halak, and Brendan Smith just completely sleeping. Gets past both of them, makes a power move across the blue paint and across Shesterkin to score, makes it 1-0 quickly on. And that was embarrassing, that they were just that unenthusiastic, that they didn't. It just felt like they were just not paying attention. Briefly after that, 12:39, Jacob Trouba takes a penalty for slashing. Penguins get a power play out of it. And on the power play, Mika Zibanejad gets a breakaway. It was him going in all alone, right? He had some room. He could have taken a backhand or moved the other way and gotten an actual shot off that was forehand. Doesn't, stops, passes it over to Buchnevich. Buchnevich passes it back over to Zibanejad, who has an empty net. The goalie has fallen down. He's out of the blue paint. It's empty and hits the crossbar. And that just sucked. That was painful. Along with that, speaking of painful, Vitaly Kravtsov's name was misspelt on the Liberties. His name is spelled Kravtsov, and on the jersey it was spelled Stov. So they had the T and the S backwards on the jersey, which is kind of... it must be sad if you're him, to see that and have your name misspelt. Like, that just seems like someone really should have fact-checked that. I mean, I fact-check whenever I spell names, and I'm doing this, and I'm not actually, making the jersey, so you'd think they would have double-checked that. 2:42, puck over the glass by the Penguins. Rangers get a power play. On it, we did absolutely nothing because our power play is kind of laughably bad. So after the first period, we are completely flat. We look bad. We can't do anything. We couldn't establish any offensive zone possession. We could barely get it out of the neutral zone, to be honest. It was a bad period. It was an awful period. Shesterkin's the only reason it wasn't a blowout after the first. And it was still a blowout, it ended up being, but man, first period, if that's not Shesterkin, it's 4-0. Maybe not 4-0, but it could have easily been 3-0. It was bad. Second period, almost immediately, 19:43 left. Mika Zibanejad starts to get a breakaway from a pass from Pavel Buchnevich, but then there's tripping by the Penguins, so the Rangers get a power play out of it. On the power play, we actually scored 17-28, and it was our second team, believe it or not. Rangers have possession in the offensive zone, and they're passing it around. Trouba passes it over to Kaapo Kakko, who patches it to Pavel Buchnevich, who sets up Colin Blackwell beautifully for a great shot, and he scores. Colin Blackwell has been really surprising this year. Ties it up 1-1. Let's go, baby. A little bit later on, 16:37. Penguins are passing it. Letang has it. He shoots, hits Chris Kreider's stick, and then goes in. Shesterkin, man, he could have had that one. But he could have. That was just a pretty bad goal to give up. It was rough. And I'm going to talk about Shesterkin towards the end. A little bit later on, oh god, this one. 14:45. Tristan Jarry completely leaves the net. It is open. There is no one there. And the puck gets put on the stick of Filip Chytil. The net is empty, and he whiffs. This is, again, could have tied it again. Could have tied it. Doesn't. This is two chances with wide open nets. There was a great picture that was starting to circulate, and it was both this and the Mika Zibanejad one-timer miss. And it was a picture of the goalie being nowhere near there, the Ranger with an open shot, and it was just both of these neither of these were goals. It was rough. So pretty soon after that, 14:36, Penguins trip Brendan Smith. We get a power play out of it. We do nothing with it. Big surprise. 8:42, Brendan Smith and Sam Lafferty get into it a little bit of a scrum in front of our net. Both get 2 minutes for roughing, but Brendan Smith gets an additional 2 minutes, so the Penguins get a power play. And on the power play almost immediately, 8:32. Penguins win the face-off. There's a gorgeous/awful passing sequence that they get going. Zucker to Zohorna to Rodriguez. It's 3-1, and I mean, man, it just is sad at this point. It's rough. It's real rough. So 3-1. A little bit later on, 3:46, something of a bright spot. Smith and Lafferty get into it again, and they were going at it, throwing punches, which was kind of insane. Pretty good fight. A heck of a fight, if I might say so myself. So that was at least something to watch that was entertaining. Then, a little bit later on, 2:01 left in the period. Kreider starts to get a breakaway, and then immediately gets slashed and tripped and messed up. So they give him a penalty shot. And my goodness gracious, I didn't realize how bad Chris Kreider was at deking or puck handling or anything like that. He looked frozen. Like it looked like he had stone hands. And like I like Chris Kreider. He's a good player. I'm happy we have him locked up long term because he does a lot of things really well. He's a great right in front of the net player. He's gritty. He can tip in with elite accuracy, I guess you would say, for tip-ins. Like, he's very good, you know? He can tip them right out of midair. It's like, he is a very good player. He's super fast. But my goodness, that was not a strong suit for Chris Kreider, and we don't do anything with it. And that was it for the second. We looked bad. Just straight up, we looked bad. Like, we had more shots. It was 10-6 in the second period, but we looked bad. We only had the one goal to show for it. Shesterkin didn't look great, and we go into the third, down 3-1. In the third, 14:05, Adam Fox, I love him, makes a pretty rough play. Not a very good one. You might say it was actually bad. Lets a guy get past him. Only way he can stop the goal is if he starts slashing on him, which he does. They get a power play out of it on the power play. Pretty quickly, actually. 13:19 left. Sidney Crosby and Igor Shesterkin kind of get into... Shesterkin shoves him a little bit to get him out of his way, which is, you know, what goalies do. And then Sidney Crosby just kind of knocked him over and just threw him out of the net. And then the refs were like, hey, there's this thing called goaltender interference. It's illegal and you can't do that. And he was like, come on, I'm Sidney Crosby. Don't do that to me. And they're like, I mean, no, we sometimes choose to enforce the rules, but I mean, who's to say? Like, might I just say, I feel like obviously it's because it's been put under a microscope since the comments in the Nashville Red Wings game. There wasn't a penalty on Nashville, but I wanted to get a penalty on them to make up for one earlier. I feel like after that, officiating has been really under a microscope, but boy, I thought the officials were kind of rough tonight. There were a lot of, and it went both ways. There were bad lack thereof calls on the Rangers and bad lack thereof calls for the Penguins. But boy, it's bad, and it feels like the NHL is just trying to say two wrongs make a right, and it isn't with officiating and how they want to handle it right now. A little bit later on, 9:31, a backhander by Zucker, and just a total miss by Shesterkin. I understand it was on a pretty feed, but that was just a bad miss by Igor Shesterkin, 4-1. A little bit later on, 9:04, Penguins get a great chance. And this is like, Shesterkin still had moments where he was very clearly playing well. Like, it's not like he's bad or anything. This was a gorgeous one. Penguins get a great chance. They're moving across from right to left on Shesterkin. He makes this great fully extended play, reaching his left pad all the way out as far as it'll go. Stops it with his skate blade. Gorgeous save by Shesterkin. He had a few really nice ones tonight. And he stops it. He keeps it at least within the realm of possibility that we can make a comeback, but we would not. 6:12 left. Pavel Buchnevich carries it into the offensive zone. A Penguins defensive play knocks it away from him. Adam Fox gets it, and then a gorgeous pass right in front to Kevin Rooney, who just flicks it on in there. Gorgeous play by Adam Fox. I think that's his 12th consecutive game with a point. Adam Fox, man, Norris candidate right now. He's playing at an unreal level. A little bit later on, 4:53 left. Mika Zibanejad takes one for high sticking. He was trying to go for the puck. It rode up the stick and hit the guy in the face, which is, I mean, you know, at that point sucks. They get a power play out of it. Nothing really happens. And then at 1:31 left, empty netter for the Penguins, 5-2. It's over. It's done at that point. And look, we sucked tonight. We played a fantastic game the other evening against the Penguins. We had a ton of momentum running into this game, and we took all of that momentum in a full sprint, and we tripped on a rock, tumbling off a cliff and into a sharp, rocky sea below. It was rough. It was a bad game. The offense was bad. The defense was pretty bad, and honestly, there were bad plays by all three of the defensive pairings. Fox had a bad play. I thought Miller and Trouba looked pretty rough. Hayek and Smith looked rough at points. Like, this was a bad game offensively, defensively by the power play. I thought Shesterkin was rough. But here's the thing. I don't think Shesterkin was bad. I think he was just very tired. He started 5 straight and 7 of the last 8 games. And, here's the thing, right? The Rangers want to make the playoffs this year. And I get that. The playoffs are very, very interesting. You want to do that. You want your players to get playoff experience. That's very good, especially when they're younger, so they can go in there, they can get their licks, get their punches taken at them, and learn from it for the future. I understand that is important, obviously. You're not going to win a Stanley Cup down the line if none of your players have any experience going into that Stanley Cup run. It's not going to happen. So I understand that. At the same time, this isn't a season the Rangers should be worried about competing, right? This is a rookie season for Igor Shesterkin. He started 12 games last year in 2020. 12. That was it. So going into this season, he's a rookie. He's young. And they are now saddling him since he came back from an injury, might I add. And they are saddling him with this insane workload. 7 out of 8. Now look, I'm not saying you have to start Georgiev and Shesterkin every other game, because I was getting frustrated with that in the first 12, 15 games of the season because they were doing back and forth, back and forth. But there has to be a compromise. You can't just be a 50-50 split or give the entire workload to Shesterkin. 2 to 3 for Igor, and then 1 to maybe Kincaid or Georgiev is what you have to be doing, right? Because this is bad. You can't just be throwing him out there to dry over and over again. This was a rough game by him, but he was just tired. You could tell. And on the note of the playoffs, right? The Rangers, they keep saying they want to make the playoffs. They want to make the playoffs. You keep hearing about the playoffs. That's all you keep hearing about with press conferences, because they're kind of close-ish to that playoff spot. I came into the season without playoff expectations. And if the Rangers weren't saying this kind of stuff, I wouldn't criticize a loss like this. You're a young team. You got young players on the first line, on the second line, the third line, the fourth line, the third line specifically, by the way. You have young players on all 3 of the defensive pairings. You have a young goaltender. I wouldn't be criticizing it. But they say they want to make the playoffs. They talk about the playoffs in every single press conference. That's all you hear out of David Quinn. And so with that, I'm judging them based off of they want to make the playoffs. And games like this, again, if they don't say it every time, I wouldn't do this. But when all they talk about is the playoffs, games like this are unacceptable if you want to be a playoff team. This was a winnable game. You had a ton of chances. Not just that, every line had chances. And they just couldn't do anything with them. I thought the Rangers had plenty of chances, as many as the Penguins, and they couldn't do anything. They had 4 power plays. They only got 1 goal. They couldn't establish any control in the first period, and they had wide open nets that they couldn't convert on. Playoff teams don't do that. And I don't want to judge you like a playoff team, because I don't view you as one. But you're putting that label on yourself, making games like this all the more frustrating, because it's when we win games, you hear about the playoffs. And when we lose games, you hear people online saying, oh, but we're the youngest team in the league. No, pick one. You got to pick one, because you can't just have a cop-out every time you lose and say, well, I know we're trying to make the playoffs and we want to make that our main objective right now, but, we are the youngest team in the league. No. Pick one. And I wanted to talk about that because it's been kind of driving me crazy the past few days. And that was basically it for the game. We looked pretty rough. The goals were by Colin Blackwell and Kevin Rooney. The assists were Pavel Buchnevich, Capo Kakko, and Adam Fox, because Adam Fox is freaking elite. And that was it. Shesterkin was pretty rough. I believe he was... I think it was 27 of 31. I could be wrong, though. On the note of goaltenders, though, thankfully, tomorrow we will not be setting Shesterkin out there. Again, we have already said that we're putting Georgiev out there, which... I'm actually happy that we're not going to set Shesterkin out there. And again, yeah, it was 27 of 31 for him tonight. So that's a positive for me that we're starting Georgiev tomorrow. I think that's necessary. I would honestly start Georgiev and then Kincaid Sunday, because I really would like to see Shesterkin get a little bit of rest. So that's all I have to say. We're playing again tomorrow night, the Islanders, and I believe that game is in New York. Well, obviously it's in New York, but I think it is in their New York. So that's all I have to say for this game. Thank you all so very much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow night with that recap, and I'll see you in about 20-30 minutes with the Astros recap from tonight. So thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day, and go Rangers.